our goal is to give every child the chance to fall in love with making music, and then to give them the skills and the experience to support that love to grow. So my number one thing is, by the time our kids leave in year six, I want them to think, okay, I loved it all, but that one stuck with me, and I'm going to keep doing that for the rest of my life. And whether that's, singing together, or whether that's composing using BandLab, or whether that's, you know, playing samba drums, I really want them to find something that just they fell in love with, and then we've done enough of actually making it substantial enough to give them, enough that they can keep it and it can grow.
I'm Dr. Liz Stafford, and this is Primary Music in Conversation. This episode of Primary Music in Conversation is proudly sponsored by Music Crew. Music Crew is a complete primary music curriculum for nursery to year 6, packed with creative tools including a recording studio and song lab. To learn more and start your free trial, visit musiccrew.co.uk. My guest for this episode is Dafydd Williams from Rushmore Primary School in Hackney. Dafydd's school are currently riding high, having been named Outstanding Music Department at the Music and Drama Education Awards 2026. I'm really excited to hear about music in Dafydd's school. Hi, Dafydd, and welcome to Primary Music in Conversation. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners?
Sure. My name is Dafydd Williams. I'm the music specialist teacher at Rushmore Primary School, which is in Hackney in East London. I have been here for, every time someone asks me, it's more 12 or 13 years now, before which I worked in, a variety of schools doing hourly work for our local music service. And once upon a time, I thought I'd be a jazz musician. So that's my history in reverse, really.
Once upon a time, I thought I was going to be like an operatic diva traveling the world, but here I am in education.
Amazing.
So, shall we start with your curriculum?
Sure.
Who's teaching it? How is it organised? Have you written your own? Are you using a scheme? Give us a flavour of how that all works.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very fancy. We have a bespoke curriculum, which basically means it's something that I've put together over the last decade, really. We do a lot of Kadai leaning things with early years. And the more I sort of am learning about that methodology, which I've kind of been working through over the last decade and still more now, the more I'm kind of rolling that further and further up the school as I'm getting more sort of confident with where I can take it. But the curriculum in a whole is, yeah, it's built on things that I think I can teach, and I think I can teach well, and I think will sort of balance out. Everyone talks about having a spiral curriculum. I'm sure we're no different. We try to, I've really tried not to say, right, we're going to learn about pulse in year 1 this term, and we're going to learn about pitch in year 2 this term, because I just want to revisit making music as much as possible and really learn by doing that. Our year 3s all do some whole class recorder with me, um, which is what I started off doing for Hackney Music Service uh, decades ago now. And then we lead that into our extracurricular Perry program, which is very big, which picks children up from year 4 if they then want to go off to a number of different instruments. But we also then, still use those recorders and also use what they've learned about reading music and playing an instrument and playing in a group into sort of some of the instrumental modules that we do in year four and year five and year six. We did quite a lot of tuned percussion from then on. Oh, there's so much. I could talk about it for ages. We do I've worked quite hard to kind of balance what children do when throughout the school. So I'm very conscious of thinking about a child, going from year one to year two to year three. Like, are they going to do three singing based projects back to back? I try to make it so that they sort of keep coming away and going back to singing
Mm.
based projects, instrument focused projects, things that are more focused around performance, like when we've got a concert to work towards, compared to those lovely sort of non-concert deadline projects where you've got some time to do more open-ended composition. You don't have a rush to sort of produce something to show off at the end in the same way. So it's taken a while and it's still getting tinkered with and changed, and it's probably not good for my peace of mind or sanity that I won't leave it alone. But you always want to fix a bit more and change a bit more. And then of course we get bored, don't we, as teachers? And we've done a song for 5 years and we cannot face doing it for the sixth. So then things get switched in and out that way as well, I guess.
Yeah, I think I may have said this on the podcast before that right really early in my career, I was doing all this planning and I was thinking, but at least next year I'll be able to reuse this. I don't think I've ever reused a plan ever, because, like you say, you tweak it, you adapt it, or you get bored of it, or there's just a better alternative that's come out that can do the same job for you. So yes, I think you're always going to be messing around with your curriculum, aren't you? Especially if, am I right, you're teaching the majority of the music yourself? Is that
I am.
correct?
So this year, I've actually dropped down from working 4 days a week to 3 days a week, just to cut my workload and also be a bit around for my young family because I have so many children. And I've got a wonderful colleague who now comes in and does my Mondays. So I've been able to hand over my year ones and year threes for this year, which is lovely. It's a new experience for me having someone else to take care of some of the kids. It's a wonderful part of the job that we do, that you get to see all the children throughout the school, and that's really lovely because even the big surly grumpy year sixes, you're thinking, I remember you in nursery. Yeah, you don't scare me. But in the same way, it's quite nice to be like a class teacher and to be able to think you're my responsibility for now, and for a little bit you'll be someone else's responsibility. And that's quite nice for sort of your own, I don't know, your personal boundaries, your peace of mind, and just giving them a break from you and you a break from them, which is
Mm.
actually reasonable and valuable.
So I suppose it's early days, so you might not be able to answer this, but like, how do you feel that's affecting things like progression and stuff? Because obviously it's much easier to keep an eye on that when you're just doing everything. So are you having to kind of have negotiations, and how are you keeping track with what's going on when it's not you physically teaching it?
That's a really good point. You do when you just hold everything in your own head, it's a lot easier to have that cohesive sense. Um, it's probably more healthy to be forced to not do that for us as professionals because number one, you need to future proof the school and the department for, I've got no plans to leave, but if that were to happen, you don't want everything to fall down the moment you walk out the door. And it's probably very valuable to have someone else's input and style. Also, because music teachers are I just believe we're so individual. We're pulling out our own little personal strengths and working out how we can transfer that. So it's really valuable for the kids to have another voice. But it does take more conversation. I think I won't really know until I get those kids back next year. And either I'm probably what will happen is they'll be absolutely fine because they've been making music. And frankly, if the kids are making music and enjoying themselves and filling their souls with beautiful things, then they'll be fine. And progress is a I always think progress is more of a byproduct of music education rather than the focus of it. But maybe it may, I mean, maybe there's a world in which I see them in September and I'm like, oh my goodness. Or maybe it's even worse. Maybe I see them in September and they're much better than they would have been with me. And then I really have to ask myself some hard questions. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, nobody wants that, do they?
I'm like, okay, take it easy.
So, do you manage to get like again, I'm thinking because obviously a lot of it is it's been designed by you, a lot of it is taught by you, and you're kind of one type of musician. Are you managing to get a lot of variety of different musical styles in there? And what give us a an idea of the sort of topics that you're covering?
Yeah, I'm very conscious of trying to give our kids a really wide offer, culturally speaking. I wrote our department mission statement a good few years ago, and to my shame, I don't know it off by heart, but it's something along the lines of our goal is to give every child the chance to fall in love with making music and then to give them the skills and the experience to support that love to grow. So my number one thing is by the time our kids leave in year 6, I want them to think, okay, I loved it all, but that one stuck with me, and I'm going to keep doing that for the rest of my life. And whether that's, singing together or whether that's composing using BandLab or whether that's, you know, playing samba drums, I really want them to find something that just they fell in love with, and then we've done enough of actually making it substantial enough to give them, enough that they can keep it and it can grow. So we we're very focused. I'm very focused on the width of music that children come across. For example, I tend to have one key listening work per half term or terms project. And I sort of I've got a nice little color coded map of that throughout, 7 years of the curriculum. So I can see, okay, we're doing a good little journey into Western classical music in this year here and then in this year here. But also I know that I'm doing a jazz project in year 5 at the moment. And I also know that, we listen to a lot of um Baroque recorder music in year 3, and then you know, we do a big folk song project towards the end of year 5. So I've got the curriculum sort of mapped up in terms of where it goes, so that we're
Mm.
not just doing the stuff that I like and think is really cool and spent years doing, which would probably be like either squeaky difficult time signatures, atonal jazz that no one else wants to listen to. Or my other real background was in sort of groovy South African township jazz that's all 3 chords and it's lovely. But hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully we give the children enough of a journey through enough things. I guess it's a I guess it's a tricky balance, isn't it? Because as they've said in sort of all the various Ofsted Music Mark webinars. You don't just want to have a little visit through
Mm.
a little shallow dip our toes into as many types of music and then say, tick, we've done gamelan. But at the same time, you don't just want to say, right, well, here's some Western classical music and a bit of pop music bolted on, and let's say that's now music education. So it's a balance, I guess. I think we do all right. I'm sure it could be better.
Well, I mean, anything in education can always be better, can't it? That's the problem with working in education.
Oh, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. My revelation, so as well as working, I've been a parent for 15 years. Wow. And my revelation in the early years of parenting was realizing that you could just be a good enough parent. And you
Mhm.
just don't have to be perfect. And you can just be good enough and think, do you know what? Everyone's fed. No one's dead. We're okay. Hopefully the overriding memory of my children of their childhood will be of love and safety and care. And I kind of think we could do with that kind of revolution in teaching, because the end, it's, of course we want to be better, and of course we want to do the best job we can. But the endless push to always be kind of quick and fast and pacey and outstanding, and let's do some recall practice starters in this extra 5 minutes. And sometimes I poke my head around the NQT, sorry, the ECT's doors and say, do you know what? It's all right if you're fine sometimes. It's all
Mhm.
right if you're okay. So yes, we can always get better, but sometimes it's okay as well just to be good, hopefully.
Yeah, I have a kind of strong, I mean, it's old school language now, but I have a really strong feeling that it's better to be in a good school, an Ofsted good school, than an Ofsted outstanding school, because an Ofsted good school is perfectly fine, more than fine, and also there's not that pressure on you to retain that amazing top of the tree status, which, that's why teachers burn out trying to
Absolutely.
be amazing all the time. Having said that, of course, we know that your music department is amazing because you just recently won an award for it, haven't you?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. It was very nice, and I'm looking at it now. I've got a very nice little shiny plaque on the wall above my whiteboard. Yes, we won the, it says Outstanding School Music Department winner at the Music and Drama Education Awards. And that was very nice. It's very nice sort of recognition for what we've been building, and how we've gone about it over the past however many years. Uh, I was saying to some colleagues before, it's funny because with those awards, no one came to see me teach. No one actually sat in my classroom and went, "Wow, this guy's inspiring," or "Wow, this guy's boring." Um, so I mean, the award, I guess it's awarded more on the basis of how well you can describe, what you've built and what you're providing, and sort of how you how you can then sort of explain that to people. But it's really, really nice. It's really nice for the children. They feel so special about it when you sort of hold it up in assembly and you say, look, you're in this school, you've won this, we've all won this. You are marvelous winners, and well done for being so fantastic. Because it doesn't happen without a culture of the children buying into it and valuing it and wanting to do it. Otherwise, we couldn't do the things that we do. And it's very nice for the school to show off. And it's very nice for me professionally to feel sort of fancy and important. And it will probably help when it comes around to sort of performance management time at the end of the year. And I can just sort of leave like the page open on a little photocopy of the photo of me getting the award. So yeah, it's all very nice and it feels very fancy. Yeah, it's nice that these things exist. I think the number one important thing about those awards is how they give space and attention to people who might not get it. So I felt very pleased that we were the only state primary in the
Mm.
running for that award. And as someone who like wholeheartedly and fervently believes in state education and just trying to build a world where everyone's local school is just a good, happy place where you'd want to send your kids. And, also just like a sort of one-off community, not part of a big academy chain school. I felt like that was a really nice thing just to hold up for this way of doing things. And uh, you know, in a world where there are very, you know, very rich independent schools who have a lot of money and a lot of time and can do, wonderful, marvelous things. And I'm sure they're making the most fantastic music. It felt very special to me that we could get that kind of attention.
Can I ask you about your extracurricular provision? Because I
Yeah.
imagine that was a big part of that application and one of the reasons that perhaps you secured that award.
Yes, this is this is something we've built very, very steadily and consistently, and it's I'm really, really proud of it. So when I arrived at the school in 2013, we had a guitar teacher and a saxophone teacher who would come in for an afternoon a week and teach 12 kids. And, it was great that they were there. And we slowly, slowly sort of built that out by, gradually recruiting more teachers to teach more instruments. But the two things that I'm really proud of and evangelical about is number one, we use pupil premium funding to fully fund all the lessons for any child in year 4 to 6 who wants a musical instrument lesson. We don't charge them for reeds or strings. We don't charge them for sheet music or exam entries. I don't even charge them for repairs if their instrument gets broken, because hopefully it happens so little that we can suck that cost up. And the
Mm,
benefit of having that opportunity for these kids is so valuable. We also give them sort of priority places, so they get a place before anyone else if they want it, because they are going to be the ones who can't get that outside of school.
mhm.
This comes in the context of um this area where I live in Hackney being sort of, it's been at the forefront of this sweeping wave of regeneration over the past few decades. Um, and so we have some families who are very, very well off and lucky, and we have some families who really don't earn or have a lot at all. And I'm very conscious that in the classroom and in the school building, we try and level that playing field. So we do a lot to try and give kids that cultural capital of learning an instrument. And yeah, it takes some work. Um, you have to you have to almost take a slightly bespoke approach, because there are problems that you have to solve that you can't necessarily do with just a policy as well. So you might have a kid who lives further away from home because they've had to move and now they're getting on the bus. So you have to say, all right, do you know what? You can keep that saxophone at home and you can have another saxophone in school. So because it's too heavy for you to carry. Or you might have another kid who says, I can't practice the trumpet at home because I live in a block of flats and my neighbors get really cross. So you have to say, okay, I've spoken to your class teacher, and he says that, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday lunchtime, he doesn't mind hanging around for 20 minutes so you can blow some long notes. You have to sort of find your ways through that. So that's one thing we've done with our instrumental program. And then the other more recent development is I felt about 4 or 5 years ago, just before everything shut down for the pandemic, but then I sort of did some things once we were back up and running. I felt like we had a lot of children learning instruments, but we didn't really have a culture of actually getting any better at it. I felt like there were kids just going along to their flute lesson and like not really being able to blow the flute, because flute is horrible and hard. And then they'd come back a week later and they're in exactly the same place. And it was just like a thing that they did. So what I did was I very slightly increased the fees for everyone who pays, so that I could pay for another hour for all the Perry staff to come back after school on the day that they teach and see all those kids again for an after school ensemble. And so you've got the net benefit of people are playing in big groups. You've got the less experienced players playing with the more experienced players so they can sort of see what they're working towards, and that encourages practice. It's all very joined up because the instrumental teachers are the ones running the ensemble, so they can kind of note bash through the ensemble music away from the group. So the ensemble moves faster because they've already actually learnt the notes and they can write bespoke parts. We've got this wonderful team of Perry teachers who are so adept and talented at tweaking, or let's make that part a little bit easier for these people, and then they can play that note on the cello now. So let's give them that. And the children who never practiced have gone from doing half an hour a week with the instrument in their hands to doing half an hour and another 60 minutes of ensemble with the instrument in their hands. So if they're really not going to practice, I have tripled at least their instrument holding time. Um, so they're playing more. And I think that's made a really, really big benefit. And it's something that as long as you're in, a large enough urban school with access to teachers who can come in and visit and access to these instruments, which I recognize, lots of small schools might not be. But as long as you've got that, if you're charging people for the lessons anyway, it only across 20 guitar students to pay the teacher for 1 hour more doesn't mean you have to increase the fees or whatever the school pays by that much. And then
Mhm.
suddenly now we've got a brass band, a string orchestra with violin, viola, and cellos. We've got a woodwind ensemble, and we've got a guitar ensemble. And that has all kind of grown out of the resources we already had in the school in terms of the teachers and the students and the instruments. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of that. And it's going, fingers crossed, quite well at the moment.
It just sounds so fantastic. So how, as a kind of percentage of students, do you know how many you've got um, actually having some kind of instrumental input?
Yeah. So we currently offer these lessons to year four, five, six, and we're a two form school. So there's 60 kids in each year. So there's 180 kids in year four, five, six. And we call that the upper phase because they're on sort of one building on one side of the playground. So it kind of works quite nicely. And among those 180 kids, we've got in September, we had about 95 of them learning an instrument.
Oh, wow.
It's dropped a little bit because when someone drops out, unless all the group drops out, if they're learning in a group of three, then you can't necessarily put someone else new in. So it takes a little bit of a Tetris jigsaw approach to complete. But I also weight the applications in terms of prioritizing the older kids as well. So,
Mhm.
it means that you have year four parents who, don't necessarily always get a place learning guitar, and you have to say, look, I'm really sorry, but they're going to have a chance in year five. They're going to have a chance in year six. But it does mean that we're really, really sure that there are no children leaving school at the end of year six and thinking, I really wanted to learn the violin and I never got the chance. Like we just know that that doesn't happen. And I also do a lot each year to keep track of our statistics. So to make sure that we've got more in the musical instrumental program, we've got a higher proportion of them will be pupil premium than across the cohort as a whole. So I
Mhm.
know, I keep track of that. So I know that we're still reaching those kids. And I also keep track of, our kids who are from global majority backgrounds. I keep track of kids who are on the SEND register as a proportion of kids learning an instrument as well. So I know that hopefully we're getting some kind of equity of access. And most years, it's not perfect, but most years we're close to 100% of pupil premium year six kids who leave have learnt an instrument or been offered it and said, no, thank you. They don't get to walk out the door and not have had the opportunity, which I guess is probably as far as you can push it. You can't sort of sell people, right now, get in that room and learn the clarinet if they don't want to be there.
Absolutely, yeah, that's just counterproductive, isn't it? For
Mhm.
all that we say that music can solve everybody's problems, if you really don't want to do it,
No.
it's just going to create you another problem. So, you're already doing loads. What is the plan for the future? Have you got more things that you want to add in?
Well, because I'm a glutton for punishment, we're planning on adding keyboard lessons in September as one more instrument. I think that will be it. That will be capacity. I may or may not at that point um, roll out the instrumental lessons to year three because the last thing you want to do is book the teachers for a set amount of hours per week and then not have enough students who want to come to the lessons to sort of justify and pay for their time. So we're gonna see how that goes for September, but mostly I think it's evolution rather than revolution. There's, you know, I've got a wonderful, supportive SLT and governors who really care about music and they want it to be there. And the great thing about having this Perry staff that are so sort of engaged and switched on and part of a team, not just sort of turning up for an hour and then being ignored and going off to another school. The good thing about that is it does sort of spread the weight off me.
Mm.
There's still quite a lot of weight on me, and I'm only one guy. So I I think we're just gonna keep ticking over and getting a just sort of getting a little bit better. Um, the danger comes when you suddenly find out something really brilliant and then you think, oh no, I'm gonna have to rebuild like 3 years worth of planning. So this was
Mm.
my experience sort of across the last 5 years, coming across more and more Kadai focused pedagogy and suddenly thinking, oh no, this really works and it works really well, and these children will sing really well and in tune. And now do I have to sort of start replanning these modules that I've at least been able to leave alone for a while? So yeah, that's a worry. The other thing is I've got a colleague, Brian, who works at Daubney Primary School round the corner, and he does a really smart, sensible thing with his kids. He learning record a ukulele and I think tuned percussion, where they do, they'll do something for a term and then they'll do the second instrument for a term, they'll do the third instrument for a term, and then they'll come back to it. So you don't just do a year of recorder and then leave it alone, but you keep coming back to these three instruments. And then you get children leaving the school proficient in three instruments, which sounds really clever. So if I can one day, if I can bear it, I'll sit down and think about that. But it's quite daunting when everything's finally quite settled to upset the apple cart. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see.
Well, I guess it depends if you're going to apply for any more awards and you need to show some
Oh
new
my
stuff
goodness.
happening.
Oh, I just no new stuff, please.
Well, it sounds like you're in a really solid position. You know, you've got all that, especially the way that you've used your funding to make those lessons, extracurricular lessons accessible. That's absolutely commendable. I'm sure your school will go from strength to strength, and I'm sure that our listeners will have got a lot out of that conversation. So I'd just like to say thank you once again for your
Oh.
time, Dafydd Williams.
Oh, well, thank you. I enjoy listening to the podcast. It keeps me company on my runs, slow and steady, over unimpressive distances. But yeah, thank you.
Well, I think it's clear why that school has won their very prestigious award. What a fantastic model they have there. It sounds like they've got a really solid curriculum led by those two specialists, but also that fantastic extracurricular programme, fully funded for pupils who can't afford it. And it's interesting, I think, that over the course of the podcast, we've started to hear those kind of models more and more. Schools who are, even in really challenging times, finding the budget to cover the cost of instrumental learning for pupil premium pupils, but also for some of the schools for any child that's interested. And it makes me think, you know, if one school can do it, surely all schools can do it. And that's not meant in a disrespectful way or in a challenging way. It's just interesting to me that essentially the funding formula is kind of the same for everybody. So how does it work in some schools but not in others? I guess size of the school helps. The more, you know, bigger the school is, the more budget you want to play with. But yeah, so that's an interesting fact that I think I will be pondering for some time to come. If you enjoyed that episode, hopefully you've listened to the other ones. If you haven't, there's a whole load. There's 3 seasons already there, wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube if you want the video version for you to dive into. You can also subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And again, underneath the video on YouTube, please do like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Get the message out about this podcast, because we're trying to get to as many primary schools as possible to share all the fantastic work that's going on across the UK and beyond. We'd like to thank Music Crew for sponsoring this episode of Primary Music in Conversation. Music Crew gives schools everything they need to teach inspiring, creative music lessons across the primary years. If you're an educator looking for a full primary music curriculum with powerful tools to spark creativity and build progression, visit musiccrew.co.uk to start your free trial. Primary Music in Conversation is presented by Dr. Liz Stafford, edited by Kay Charlton, and produced by Music Education Solutions.